If you've been following my entire build series up to this point, you have built an entire medieval economy. Blacksmith, lumber mill, quarry, roads, and now even a tavern. But right now, there's no food to feed any of it. So today, we're going to break ground on the agricultural district across the river. That means we're going to build crop fields that look like real farmland, and then we're going to put a storage barn that ties it all together. Welcome back to week 9 of our Medieval Village tutorial series. If you've been following along, we've come a very long way. We've built the blacksmith, the lumber mill, the warehouse, the quarry, and then we tied it all together with roads and bridges. Last week, we opened the doors to the Golden Tankard, and now our village finally has its social hub. But here's the thing. None of that matters if there's no food on any of the tables. So today, we're crossing the river and we're going agricultural. We're going to design a crop field that looks like they're growing on actual land and not just floating in a flat dirt square. Then we're going to build a medieval storage barn that sits right at the edge of those fields, and it'll be ready to house our wheat, our carrots, potatoes, anything else and everything else that your village needs to survive throughout the winter. By the end of this video, your village won't look industrial, it'll look self-sufficient. So with that, let's get to building. First things first, location. And here's where most people go wrong. Do not build your crop fields on perfectly flat land. And I'm going to say that again. Do not flatten the ground before you farm it. Nature doesn't do flat squares, and neither should your wheat fields. Real medieval farmland follows the contours of the land. It rolled, it dipped, it wrapped around trees and rocks instead of just destroying them. You need to find a spot that already has some natural variation. Things such as a gentle slope, a slight hill, really anything that breaks up the flat horizon. For my village, I'm placing these fields right across the river, and it's going to be close enough that the innkeeper can walk over to buy grain, but not far enough that it feels like it's in its own district. So I'm going to look for an area maybe 20 or 30 blocks. You can go bigger, you can go smaller, but make sure you start manageable. Moving on, here's the terraforming technique that I promised. Instead of just flattening the ground, we're going to build with it. So we're going to start by clearing most of the trees and the tall grass, but we're going to leave all of the interesting landscape features. If there's a small pond, work around it. A lone oak tree, that becomes the centerpiece of your south field. These natural anchors are what sell the realism. Once that's done, go grab your shovel, because we're going to use dirt paths to carve gentle pathways between what will become individual crop sections. Make sure these do not wind up as straight lines. You're going to curve them slightly just like we did with the roads and paths. A good technique you can use is to imagine a cart has been driving the same route for 20-30 years. The path should feel worn, not calculated. Once your paths are laid, you'll have maybe 3 or 4 distinct sections of field. Each one is a different crop zone, and here's the key. Vary the elevation, even if it's just by 1 block. Just pick a section, raise that one section half a block with coarse dirt underneath. Leave another at ground level. Maybe one dips slightly into a natural depression. But this 1 block variation is everything. It's going to create shadows, it's going to create organic edges. It makes your field look like farmland instead of just a flat spreadsheet grid. Now we're going to move on to the actual crops. And I want you to think about something that gets overlooked constantly. Crop rotation made visual. In a real medieval village, different fields grew different things. One field might be wheat, another carrots, another potatoes, but they didn't all grow the same crop in perfect rows, so we're going to do the same thing. So in section 1, this is going to be our wheat field. Wheat is the backbone of any medieval food supply, so give it the largest section. When you plant, make sure you use that water block rule. 1 water source hydrates a 9x9 area, but here's the trick. Do not dig your water channels in straight lines. Instead of a neat grid of water holes, build a small irrigation ditch that runs through the middle of your wheat field. Dig a 1 block wide channel, fill it with water, line the edges with coarse dirt or even stone, and the occasional mossy cobblestone to make it look old but maintained. Remember, this isn't modern farming. Water would have been routed through with wooden channels and simple ditches. Section 2. Root vegetables. So your carrots and potatoes go here. Although modern techniques have these root crops planted in straight lines, we're going to change it up here a little bit. Since we don't have the modern machines to harvest them in these straight lines, we're going to plant them in clusters or pods that are just going to be sections of these plants grouped together. In between that, for the pathways that are in between, we're going to use a darker soil mix. We're going to do this by using coarse dirt and podzol. You can also mix in some gravel if you needed, or granite if you want some different texture. Section 3. This is going to be your experimental plot or beetroots or anything like that. We're going to keep this one smaller and maybe even slightly sloped. So in this field we can also throw in a little scarecrow using fences and a carved pumpkin. Speaking of which, this could be a pumpkin field. Pumpkins and melons, that's perfect. Anyway, details like this will take 10 seconds to build, but add 100 years of storytelling to your village. Speaking of details, there's one more thing. Hay bales. Stack 2 or 3 hay bales near the edge of your wheat field with a few barrels nearby. And I know you really shouldn't have hay bales with the wheat still growing in the field, but this is Minecraft and we need some detail. But this will be your harvest staging area. And it kind of tells the story that someone was just here working. And that's the difference between a build and a set piece. With the first part of this tutorial finished, I wanted to take a step back and thank you guys for all of your continued support. Last video, I asked if you guys thought we could finally cross that milestone of 500 subscribers, and literally the second day after releasing it, we already crossed it. So again, I just wanted to say thank you and that you guys are absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to see you guys at 1,000. Hopefully by the end of the year, since that's the channel's next milestone, but hey, you know, we'll take it as we can get it. But anyway, be on the lookout for a very special 500 subscriber video, and yeah, anyway, with that, let's get back to the build. Okay, so take a step back and look at what we got so far. Rolling terrain, curved paths, multiple crop types, irrigation, borders, scarecrow, hay bales. This already looks like a place people live and work. But there's a problem. Where do we put all this food? You just can't throw barrels in a field and call it a day. A village this size needs real storage, which brings us to the second half of today's build. The barn. For me, this barn is going to sit right at the edge of my wheat fields. It's going to be close enough to haul the grain into, but far enough that it doesn't block the view of the crops. And remember, realistically, they would pick their spot very carefully. They would have wanted it to be on the highest ground near the field, so during the times of rainfall, the water drains away from the barn. Now remember, a real medieval barn has 3 things. First up, scale. The door needs to be tall enough for a cart loaded with hay to be able to make it in. Second, materials. For my barn, we're going to use a heavy timber frame, some stone foundation, and a roof that overhangs to make sure it keeps the rain off the walls. Third, its purpose. I know that everybody knows what a barn is for, but you need to remember in Minecraft that this building is not just for chests. It's going to be a working building. Let's go ahead and lay down the footprint for this barn. For this one, we're going to go with a rectangle. For mine specifically, I'm going 11 blocks wide by 15 blocks long. I always build it in odd numbers, always. That way it gives me a clear center block for the door, and it always makes my roof symmetrical. Now here's the thing about barns. They need to set on a foundation. Since we already have our footprint laid out, we already have our guideline. So go ahead and grab some stone bricks and build a 1 block high base around that entire perimeter. In survival, this could be cobblestone or stone bricks, or even some stone if you have that. Basically whatever you've gotten from the quarry that we built back in week 4. Once the perimeter is built, go ahead and fill it in. With our foundation built, now comes the frame. Oak logs at every corner, just like our other builds, and then in between those logs we're going to do gaps of 3 or 5. But here's the difference. A barn's pillars go higher. Remember, we're not building a cozy house, we're building an open working structure. I would suggest going at least 6 blocks high, but if you want a hayloft or hay storage, remember the roof will kick it up even higher, so you get away with 5, 6, or 7, whichever you prefer. Once the pillars are done, you need to connect the top with horizontal oak logs. Remember, this is always the beam structure. just like we talked about in the fisherman's house and in the Golden Tankard, but the walls are going to set back 1 block behind the frame, just like always. Remember, this creates the depth that makes our builds pop. With the frame up, let's do the walls. Just like our other builds across the river, remember, stone walls with variations in stone blocks. For this barn, since I want it to look like it was built with purpose and to last for a while, the lower half of every wall is going to be stone bricks, but not just stone bricks. I'm going to mix in cracked stone bricks, mossy stone bricks, and then the occasional regular stone block. It's going to come out to be about 70% clean, 30% varied, but make sure you do not place randomly. Cluster the moss blocks near the ground, and the cracked blocks near the top where the stress would show from the structure up above. For the upper half of the wall under the A-frames, we're going to be using stripped oak logs placed vertically. This is going to give you that classic timber frame barn look. The contrast between the gray stone below and the warm wood above is exactly what sells the medieval aesthetic. Now remember though, barns did not have big windows. Glass was expensive and the heat was very precious. Instead, punch a small opening near the roof peak on the short sides, probably 2 blocks wide, 1 block high. Cover them with spruce fences instead of glass. This will allow the air to circulate through the hayloft without actually letting in rain or animals. For the short walls, you can add in 1 small window on each long side, but try to keep it narrow, usually 1 block wide, 1 block high, somewhere along those dimensions. Again, fences across the opening. If you want, you can even hang lanterns on these fences to make it look intentional. Moving on from the walls, we're headed to the roof. And remember what I said about the fisherman's house. A roof is another place where a building can live or die. For a barn, this is especially true, as the roof is half of its visual footprint. For this build, we're going with a steep A-frame. Steep roofs shed rain and snow faster, and barns in wet climates always had steeper pitches. For ours, we're using the dark oak stairs for the trim and Deepslate for the fill, same palette as the rest of the village. But we're going to go ahead and start with our gable overhang. Your roof needs to extend 1 block past the wall on all 4 walls, the front, the back, and both sides. This detail alone separates an okay build from a great one. It casts a shadow underneath, and it protects the walls from the weather. For the roof itself, use the stair block stair pattern we've used before. Forward facing stair, upside down stair, full plank, repeat. Once the outline is done, fill the interior with Deepslate. And just like the stone walls, variation. Deepslate, Deepslate tiles, cracked Deepslate tiles, cobbled Deepslate, mix them all in. Once the roof is almost finished, here's a barn specific touch. The roof peak needs to be slightly lighter than the rest of the roof, so use Deepslate tile stairs at the very top ridge. This catches more light and it draws the eye up, which then emphasizes the height of the building. With the roof finished, that means the barn is built. But remember, this isn't just a storage box, it's a working farm building, so make sure you dress up the outside. One of the biggest details here is outside of the front barn doors, place a pathway using coarse dirt, gravel, granite, whatever you built your pathways out of. This is where the carts and feet have been walking for years and have worn down the grass. After that, we're going to scatter a few barrels and chests near the entrance. These are waiting to be loaded or unloaded. You can decorate the outside of your barn however you want. Some details I use are stacks of firewood using extinguished campfires. I use the stacks of logs that we have over at the sawmill. Also use wheelbarrows that we have at the quarry, chests, cauldrons, lecterns, anything of that nature that looks like it belongs here. Just make it look cluttered. Remember, you can also have a small animal pen. Fence off a little 5x5, 7x7, 5x7 area and throw in a couple of hay bales. You don't need actual animals, although if you're in survival, you definitely can add them in here, but the pen alone tells the story. Maybe throw in a cauldron with water in it to simulate a water trough. Once the exterior details are done, you now need to connect your barn to your crop fields. Remember, curved path techniques. Path blocks, coarse dirt edges, a fence post every now and again with a lantern on it. This path is the artery between production and storage. Also, don't forget, make sure you blend all of this into the landscape. At the base of your stone foundation, place some leaf blocks as low bushes. Put vines on the corner of the barn, but only one. A fully covered barn looks absolutely abandoned. A partially covered barn looks lived in and old at the same time. Take a step back. You start with an empty patch of grass across the river. Now you've got rolling crop fields with irrigation, curved paths, scarecrows, multiple crop types, a medieval storage barn with a hay loft, and enough barrels to feed the entire village throughout the winter. Builds like this is what separate a real village from just a collection of buildings. Your world now has an agricultural backbone. The blacksmith has iron because the quarry is running, the inn has food because these fields are growing, everything connects. And guys, we're building something special here. Week by week, this village is coming to life. If this tutorial helped lay the groundwork for your own agricultural district, hit that like button. It also genuinely helps out the series and helps me reach much more Minecraft players and builders. Not to mention, I definitely appreciate it. Also, let me know in the comments, what crop do you think belongs in section 3? I went with beetroot, but I want to hear your ideas, and I'll pick my favorite one. Next week, we're expanding to the monastery, a chapel, courtyard, and maybe even a cemetery. You're not going to want to miss it. Anyways, guys, if you need to catch up, the full playlist to this series is down in the description. And with that being said, guys, remember, keep building, and I will see you later and catch you on the next one.